Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast. I am your host, Janet Sandberg, an intuitive coach and healer who helps you figure out if you're on the right path and give you clarity and hope for the future. I am joined today by Jeni. I didn't ask
Simas-Layte.
Simas-Layte. I was going to say
Yeah.
Seamus, and then I was like, Seamus or Simas?
It's all good.
Jeni. We'll just stick with Jeni.
There you go.
Who's going to share her story and wisdom with us today. Jeni, welcome.
Thank
Tell
you.
us a little bit about yourself.
So I right now, this version of me that is now is a testament to the version of me that existed in 2021 when I experienced real and horrible, weighty depression, really for the first time in my life. And yeah, I mean, we're going to get into that. But
We
this
sure are.
person who runs her own business, got remarried, you know, has the kids who are not just surviving, but thriving, going back to school for the first time in 20 years, all that good stuff. Yeah. I would not be her if the version of me that existed in 2021 did not.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. So let's dive right in. What was going on in 2021?
So let's back up to 2020, which was everybody's favorite year, right?
Yeah.
In February of 2020, I remember it vividly because it was my dead mother's birthday, and I had been at my parents' grave all day. I got home, got in an argument with my then husband, and later that evening, I said, "Do you want to talk about this some more?" Because we had kind of scared the kids arguing the way that we were, and like we had to
Mm.
put a kibosh on it. And I said, "You want to talk about it more?" And he said, "I don't love you. I never loved you. I've been faking it to make it for 11 years and it's fucking killing me."
Oh my God.
Yeah. And, this was not like someone who I, just often married or whatever. Like, this was
Yeah.
a guy who was my friend who then I started to fall in love with probably very soon after I met him, but then had to put that on the back burner for years while we both dated the wrong people and what have you. And then we ended up getting married and having two kids, going to different countries together because he was in the military. Like, it was
Okay.
a lot. It was a
Yeah.
lot. I lost both my parents and my surrogate parent when we were together. A lot of life changes
Mhm.
happened during this relationship. So hearing that kind of made me think, okay, up is down, east is west. Everything that I believe is a lie. Cool. All right. What do I do with that? And for a
Yeah.
while, I didn't really do anything with it. I said, we're done because you can't come back from that. And he kind of moved on. He moved out. The pandemic lockdown happened 3 weeks after he said that, I think, something like
Oh
that.
my gosh.
Yeah.
So
So
you're
it was a
sitting
little,
with all of that by yourself.
and we have a special needs child who has nonverbal autism. And if you don't know about that world, that's an annoying part of it, like, that you can't communicate and you can't get your needs met, and, like, a lot of time that might lead to biting, pinching, grabbing, head banging, that kind of thing, because my son just simply can't communicate what
Yeah.
he's
He's
needing
just
or
super
what's
frustrated.
happening to him, but also he's an eloper, so he will just up and leave and walk out in streets barefoot, no matter what, temperature, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, it's very stressful. It's a very
Mhm.
stressful situation. A lot of people see autism or hear autism and they think like Sheldon or the good doctor. No, we have that kind of autism in our house that no one talks about.
Right.
So I had already had bouts of anxiety and depression that were horrible in the way that, like, I just didn't feel hope at different times
Mhm.
because of what we had going on, because of my mom's Alzheimer's coming when it did, because of losing my dad the way that I did, all of these things compound. And honestly, I also took a really long time. Actually, I'm not done. I'm not done working through the things that happened to me as a child, but I witnessed violence. I was sexually assaulted more than once as a child, starting at 7 years old, and I dealt with that in my teen years, in my 20s, like, really up until about this time, drinking, smoking cigarettes, ignoring, stuff down, stuff down,
Yeah.
stuff down. So, before he said what he said, I had gone inpatient one time because I was very depressed and I was laying on the couch and I just felt like there was no hope. Things with my son were really, really rough. We had moved to try to make things better and they weren't any better. They were actually worse. And I was just like, I feel defeated and I feel like I'll never be able to work to earn money and we'll always be broke. And everything is just so heavy. And maybe I would be more useful if I were a life insurance policy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And you can feel free to ask me questions. I will ramble on forever if
Yeah.
you let me.
Yeah, that's
Um,
okay. Ramble away.
yeah. So and also during these times, like, so I don't want to get too far into other people's business, but I'll just say someone very close to me around the same time that my mom had Alzheimer's and then eventually passed away Christmas Day, 2018. I had a very important person who I kind of feel responsible for in my life who had tried to commit suicide, who had a stroke, lost his job, was homeless, you know, just having all sorts of problems. And I'm trying to like manage that as well as what's going on inside my house, as well as maybe taking a few minutes to grieve that my mom was actually gone, not just like in her mind
Just
gone.
mostly gone.
Because,
Yeah.
like, we lost her twice. Like, if
Yeah.
you've lost somebody to
My mom
dementia, you
died
lose them twice.
had dementia and died, so I know exactly what
Yeah.
that's like. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
It's
grieve
like
every
you,
time
yeah.
you see them because they're not there,
Hmm.
and then eventually they're not there physically either.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had talked to lawyers and they're like, get a job, get a job. And I'm like, for years, I haven't been able to get a job because I have this kid at home who it will cost me $22 an hour to get a babysitter for him. What
Yeah.
job am I getting after being a stay at home military wife for 11 years with a friggin' theater degree? Like, what job am I getting right now, Susan? What is happening? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, you got to get a job. You got to pinch pennies. You got to make it look like you don't spend a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah,
everything
I'm
was just
already
so
doing
much.
those things. Thank you very much.
I wasn't very well, but that's on that point. Um, but I mean, it's like luckily, like if my mom was still there, she would have taken us and just said like, let's move in together and you'll be fine,
Right.
So she wasn't there, but we had money from her passing. So luckily I had that, like a
Okay.
cushion, you know? But I did try to go work. And what I did was try to go work in the school systems because I got kids in school. So
Mhm.
I'll go work in the school system. So I was a autism aide in a kindergarten class and then again in like a second grade class. And neither of those worked out very well because it was still COVID. And
Right.
the schools that my son was going to had very strict rules. Like if he was out if he got exposed, he had to be out for 5 days. Like, how was I supposed to keep a job?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because if
So
he's out, you're out.
right.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So all of these things are kind of compounding, like, and it piles on to the hopelessness, right? Amid all this, like, my ex, he had to leave the state because he was still in the military, so he had to go to his next duty station, So I'm not even having, like, a co-parent,
Right.
you know?
Yep.
Like, there's not even somebody coming and helping out every
It's
other
all on you
weekend for
all the
24
time.
hours or 48 hours or whatever. It's just me, just me. And I had a roommate and I had friends, and that is what got me to not die. I'm gonna say that right now. Like, I ended up going inpatient again in 2021. And that's really when, like, the shit hit the fan because I had been in outpatient therapy since I went in for that 2 days, like, in late 2019, and it was really funny. I was in inpatient in the city. I'm in Maryland, so I was in Baltimore, and this guy was like, "Nobody gets out of here in less than 3 days. Nobody." And I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm gonna get out of here in 2 days. And he was like, nobody leaves here within 3 days. And sure as shit, I was like, hey, y'all need a bed because I need to get out of here. Like this was too much. At that point, I did not need that kind of intervention.
Right.
I was like, I'm taking a bed from somebody who needs to be here. I don't need to be here. I can figure some of this out right now.
Yeah.
So they were like, all right, get out. So they pushed me out and they did help me meet up with, outpatient. And outpatient helped to a point. And that's the thing. I think that's a big thing people don't understand is like somebody meeting with you every week or every other week or every 3 weeks, whatever it is, there's only so much they can do. And I was meeting with my counselor and I told her, I've been having these thoughts about dying. And it was really weird for me because this person that I care about so much in my life, when he had tried to commit suicide, and he's not the only one. I've had a lot of, it's going to sound terrible, but I've had a lot of friends commit suicide. It's like, Jenny, what are you like attracting people and then making them suicidal? Like, what's
Mm.
happening? But it's just over the course of my life, it's actually
Yeah.
been a lot of men, young men in my
Mhm.
life, friends who have gone this route. They were just in so much pain or just couldn't figure out a way to
Right.
do life anymore. It was too heavy. So, thinking about this person in my life who had done this, I remember talking to another friend of mine who was a survivor. She'd attempted and, uh, she didn't succeed or God, I hate that word
Yeah.
for when it comes to this. No, but she lived. All right. How about that? She lived. And when I asked her, I was like, I can't understand why he's still so upset. Like, it's been a year. And she was like, Jenny, when you decide that you're ready to die, things are terrible. Things are really, really bad. They don't change fast enough for you to feel all that different all that fast.
Right.
Like, it's just not how it works. It might take him the rest of his life to not feel that way, but he's here.
Mhm.
So let's just celebrate that. So that stuck in my mind a little bit and it felt very, what's the word? Counterintuitive? I don't know. Like it just felt weird that I was then going through it,
Right.
like a year
Yeah.
later, 2 years later. I didn't understand. I couldn't empathize fully with all these people I knew who had either tried or had ended up following through or had just expressed to me feeling that way because I was like, things can't be that bad. Nothing's going to be bad enough that this is better. Come on, it can't be that bad. We'll figure it out. Let's find the money. Let's find the new housing situation. Let's find the new job. Whatever it is. Let's figure it out. And when I was down in it, I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't tell them. I drank and I hit it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
drank and I smoked cigarettes. That gave me energy. The nicotine gave me like almost manic energy to balance out the depressant
Listen.
of the
Yeah.
alcohol, and that kept me level. I was drinking like half a bottle of whiskey a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was drinking, but I was like maintaining. Like, I was making sure that I wasn't gonna drink anytime near when I would have to drive my children somewhere. And if
Right.
I was drinking, I knew someone was either across the street, next door, or in the house who could take my kid to the emergency room if that needed to happen? So I was, like, very calculated about this. And still, I mean, it wasn't good. It wasn't good, I'll tell you that. But I just fell into this place where if the kids were not around, I was on the couch. If they were not there, I was laying down.
Yep.
And then they would come home. I would have snack, do after school therapies and homeworks, get baths, make dinner, do all the things. And then as soon as they were in bed, I was right back laying down thinking, I would be worth so much more to you as a life insurance policy. How
Mhm.
do I do this? How do I do this and do this well? Like, how do I do this and not end up just paralyzed and then another burden for somebody?
Right.
Like that
Yeah.
was my big concern was like, I'm going to do it and I'll mess it up. And
Mm.
then I'll
Right.
be another person that
Then it'll be
needs
even
care.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they'll be totally shit God, what's gonna happen now, because my parents are gone. Who's gonna do it? My sister? Like, who's gonna do that? Who's
Yeah.
who's doing that? So I didn't want that to happen, but I also just didn't feel like existing the way that I
Mhm.
was anymore.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's really the crux of it, is that this whatever we're living through, we just don't wanna do that anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
And I've been there
I
too, like when, you get up in the morning, you do the things, put the kids on the bus or get them to school or whatever, and then I would sleep all day until it
Mhm.
was time to get up for them to come home. And then you get up, you do all the things, and you get them off to bed. And then, you have that on repeat. And I
Lather,
just
rinse,
chose to
repeat.
sleep all the time because I didn't want to be living my life.
Yeah.
But that wasn't, it wasn't sustainable.
No. No, so I did end up, so I had like I said, I had these friends, like so it's interesting. One of them came back into my life because it's a very weird plot, but he ended up being like one of my best friends now, and he came back around when I was separated at first. And he helped so much let me know that I was worthy of living and
Mhm.
that the world would be worse if I wasn't around, that I needed to be here. And a lot of people will ask, like, how could you be so selfish? You have children. How could you how could you have these thoughts? You have children, you know?
Not a choice.
Yeah.
The
And it's
thoughts are
like
not
in that
a
moment,
choice.
I thought that it would be better. I was
Yeah.
like, if I can get their dad this money, then he can marry someone else who will be stronger and smarter
Yeah.
and less scared all the time.
Wow. Yeah.
Those were the thoughts, and they just played on repeat.
Yeah.
I was not good
Yeah.
enough. I was not worthy. I shouldn't be their mom. I'm doing lots of things wrong. Maybe if they had a different mom, things would be
Mm.
better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you have those cyclical, negative, intrusive fucking thoughts,
Mhm.
there is nothing that will break you out of that. You can put on the makeup and the show and drink it away or, smoke it away, whatever it is, your drug of choice, what have you, to a point. But
Mhm.
when you are alone and it's time to go to sleep, it's going to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had another friend who was so gracious, and I had a lot of friends actually. Like you think back and you're like, God, why couldn't that have been an indication for you that like you should maybe stick around? You have all of these people giving a lot of a shit about you. Maybe you're
People who love
cool.
you.
Yeah, maybe you're all right. But that negative voice,
Yeah.
that little voice, and it was in the voice of my ex, which is fucking
Oh,
hilarious
I
now.
hate that.
And it's funny. I just saw him today. Like, we're doing great. We're doing great
That's
co-parenting
awesome.
now. Like,
Good.
he's seeing somebody. I got me remarried. Like, we're doing great now. But then
The
his
transition.
voice
Yeah.
was on fucking repeat. Like, you're garbage, you're a piece of shit, die in a fire, blah, 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 just all of this negativity. So I had this one friend who was like going to the grocery store for me once a week. She was driving from like 45 minutes away, going to the grocery
Oh,
store and like Costco for me once a week.
that's amazing.
And then just being like, Venmo me. I got you. I got you. I'll help you. I'll make sure that everybody's eating. It's fine. And she helped me like with my taxes for like the first year that I had to do them by myself, and just very, very encouraging and
Practical help.
supportive. Yeah. And at the same time, she was like, hey, girl, I'm not a therapist. So when you tell me the things that you do, are you telling your therapist the things that you tell me? And I was like, some days. And she was like, yeah, you need to tell her like all the time. You should tell her all the time what's going on in there. So I did eventually tell my therapist, like, yeah, I've been fantasizing a lot about like falling down and banging my head in the shower. And she was like, you
Hmm.
have dreams about it? And I was like, no, I'm
Mm.
trying to figure out how and what angle I should do it at to die. And she was like, oh, right. Well, then that means we have a couple choices here. I can send a mobile crisis unit today, or I can give you the weekend to get in touch with your ex, get him here, and then you go inpatient until you don't feel that way anymore. So I chose the
Mm.
latter and
Yeah.
I called the Red Cross and got my ex here so that he could be with the kids. And I went inpatient at Shepherd Pratt here in Maryland. And that's a pretty big hospital. And it is not what you think it is going to be. I don't
Oh,
know. Have you ever gone inpatient?
no. No,
Okay.
I haven't. So I really have
So,
no idea
right.
what
So
happens.
the first one was like very much like what you think you would see in, like, some seedy movie about, like, Baltimore. Like, the lady next to me was really, really high and, screaming and telling me that she might slit my throat in her sleep or something like that, so I was like, "Cool,
Nice.
great." At that point, you're like, "Alright, well, I came in here because I keep wanting to die, so
Yeah.
you gonna take
Oh
care of it for me, honey llama? Cool, whatever." And I met some interesting people there. I got a little bit of lesson, but, like, I wasn't there very long.
right.
And I had decided, like, I hadn't even tried any medication yet. I hadn't been in therapy for very long. I was like, "Can we try something, like, less intense right now? Because I feel like this is overkill." Pun not intended. So then the second time when I went in 2021, I was very goal oriented. I was like, I need to stop having these thoughts, or I
Mhm.
need to get control of what I do when I have these thoughts. It was way less seedy. It was like a nice new building. They had like a water garden thing. We made mandalas in art, but it was still a locked facility. I was there willingly, but couldn't leave until they said, like, "You're
You're
okay
safe.
enough to leave."
Yeah.
I had one guy in there there was one guy in there that came because he couldn't sleep, and I was like, "You came to the wrong fucking place," because they check on you, like, every hour in the night to see if you are trying to hurt yourself. There's no shower curtains. The toilet doesn't have very much water in it because, like, they don't want you to hurt yourself in any
Right.
way. There was a girl there who was like a klepto and she stole all my stuff at
Oh,
one point.
but she
Like
couldn't go
my
anywhere with it, so
no, but, like, she stole my shower stuff and, like, my toothbrush and used it, and I was like, "Well, that's annoying." I had actually gotten taken to a hospital the second day that I was there for having a blood clot in my leg from all the
Oh.
laying around that I had been doing.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because I have a clotting issue. It's another fun fact for depression, you're just laying around a lot. You might get a clot in your legs.
Right.
Um
Good to know.
Yeah. So when I came back, they were like, "Oh, we're sorry. She like took all your stuff." And then she left before I did. And she came knocking on my door. She apparently still had like some lotion of mine or something. And she gave it back.
That was
And I was
nice.
like, "All right, you're right." And she would like roam off the unit. Like if there were emergencies, she would like slip out the door behind people and go to the other units. I mean, it was bananas. So I guess this is to demonstrate when I was in there, I was momming. Like, I wasn't taking care of myself.
Right. You're
I
still looking
wasn't
after everybody
yeah,
else.
I was momming. I was not focusing on what needed to change. I was asking questions. I was trying to get a better lead on what was going on with my brain, but really going impatient didn't I don't think it changed me from being suicidal. I think that it changed me from ever wanting to go impatient again. I'll tell you that.
Take care of myself so I don't end up back here.
Yeah, I got high blood pressure while impatient because of the salty ass food that
Oh
they
my
serve in there. I'm not fucking kidding. I'd never had a problem with it before, and then suddenly I had high blood pressure. I was like, "What the hell is this?" Let's see. You watch a lot of Family Feud because they don't want you to watch anything that's, like, controversial.
right.
So, I hated with a passion Steve Harvey by the time I was
I
done.
believe you. Yeah.
I was there for 2 weeks, and my daughter and I talked every day, and every day she cried. Every day she, like, blubbery cried, "When are you coming home?" Like, so that is a big difference for moms doing this. I know dads, they don't have that fucking issue when they go inpatient.
Yeah.
Their kids are not on the phone crying like, "Why are you away?" At
Yeah.
least not the ones I know. There was conspiracy within my ex's family, like, "We need to take the kids away from Jenny, blah, 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 blah." Um,
Right.
yeah, so got a call from someone within the ranks who was like, "You need to come home. I don't know what's going on, but you need to come home, like, now." So, I wasn't I wasn't, like, better.
Right.
I wasn't
You had a bit of a break.
healed or fixed or whatever. I think it was a wake-up call that this is not what fixes suicidal ideation. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and being in there showed me that other people are struggling in many different ways. That was
Mhm.
helpful, I think. The person who helped me the most, honestly, was the activities director because I was telling him about the things that were making me scared, like the bills piling up, figuring out, like, how the hell am I gonna work? He was like, "Well, you're just gonna have to find something untraditional, girl."
Yeah.
And I said, "Alright, okay. Maybe I can do that." And he was like, "Yes, you can." So when I got out, I did look for something untraditional. I started looking at being a sex coach, and that's what I do. And while doing that, I also got on Hinge and decided to see if I could find anybody who might be cool to hang out with. And in about a month, yeah, 6 weeks, I met Zach, who I am now hitched to. Yeah, like a lot of things changed when I got out. I don't
Yeah.
know if you want to ask questions about like what that breakdown was or what have you.
No, well, it's just interesting that sometimes, kinda all it takes is a kick in the ass and a different perspective
Mhm.
because we get so absorbed in our lives and our problems and our feelings.
Mhm.
And like you said, the inpatient experience itself didn't help. It wasn't because you had a great therapist and medication and, all of the stuff you expect that is going to help,
Mm.
but it was that perspective that, lots of people have lots of things going on. It's not just me. And like we were chatting before we started the official interview, it's about feeling so alone in our own stuff that it feels like it's just gonna always be this way. Yeah, so you just went somewhere else for a couple of weeks and got a different perspective and came back and were like, "I can make changes. I don't have
Mhm.
to be stuck in this situation." And,
Right.
whatever it was just a little bit here and a little bit there, and
And it
yeah,
took a while. Like those habits didn't break right away. I was
absolutely
still
not.
drinking to excess. I was still smoking a lot of cigarettes, but what what changed in me was not thinking that that was going to solve any of it. Not thinking
Yeah,
that like suicide was going to help anything for everyone that I loved.
yeah,
It gave me, yeah, perspective.
yeah,
Yeah. So definitely was still partying, and I lost people. Like I lost not necessarily to suicide. I did lose someone like very near, like it was very close to when my ex said what he said that kind of put the nail in the coffin of our relationship. And we were not perfect. Like it was not like he said that after, 10 years of happy marriage.
right.
We were not perfect. We weren't a good match. It's funny how you can be like so angry and so hurt in the moment. And then years later, you can be like, God, that was like probably the best thing that he ever said to me. If he
Mhm,
hadn't said that, we'd be 70 and just seething hate at each other.
mhm. It's that
Why?
perspective again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. But in that moment, it's funny after I met my now husband and we moved in together, I had another grief cycle that was rough. So much change.
Yeah.
Change. Moving 30 minutes away, we have to go through a tunnel now to get to anybody we know. Blah 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 blah. New schools for my daughter, new schools for my son. me not knowing anybody, still not really sure, like, am I really supposed to be doing this sex coaching thing? Is this really the way, you know?
Yeah.
So 2022 was also interesting that I had the grief cycle or had like a depressive summer, but with a different partner who was just like, it'll be all right. You'll be okay. Like,
Yeah.
don't don't beat yourself up too much. Like, it'll be okay. That was very, very life-changing. Not having somebody who's gonna get down on you because you have these issues, you
How
know?
dare you have feelings?
Right. Like, "What's wrong with you? Get
Right.
up off the couch. Why do you hate your life? Your life is easy. You're a stay-at-home."
I had an ex-husband like that too.
Right? You're fine. Yeah. But, and that's the thing, like, when you're a parent, like, you don't just get to, like, divorce the person and then, like, you have to know them, and, like, we have a special needs kid, like, it's not like I can just be like, "I only have to know you until they're 18." No, I have to know you fucking forever. So we have to figure out how to do that without being so bitter about all the vitriol that we spit at each other and just kind of move past it. And some days it's easier than others,
Sure.
but having that partner who was just like, I'm really not worried about you unless you're worried about you. Tell me what I can do to help. How can I help?
Mhm.
Do you want me to bother you to get up off the couch? Or is this what you need right now?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that makes a huge fucking difference. And circumstances. I think that's the biggest thing that I want to tell people. Like, your circumstances right now don't necessarily have to stay that way, even if it seems like it's so heavy and there's no escaping it, whether it's, like I said, money, job, relationship, whatever it is, there's always this wiggle room. Always. I don't care if you're about to get sent up for 20-year sentence. There's always wiggle room.
Yeah.
So I just hope that you can see it because there is this whole life after when I would have ended my life, and this life after is, like, so rich and worthy of being lived
Mhm.
that I'm very lucky and I'm very happy that I get to.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just starts with one thing. Like just pick one thing to improve. And there was another guest on the podcast and she started with quitting smoking. She was like, "Okay, that's my thing. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to quit smoking." And then which is not an easy thing to do. Like that's a pretty big
Mm-mm,
first thing to do, but that's what she
mm-mm,
decided it was going to be. And then then she felt better because she wasn't smoking, she's physically felt better. And then she could do the next thing. And
right?
that's kind of how it is for all of us. And like you said, you continued on with the drinking and the smoking for a while,
Mhm,
but you started with one thing and then the next thing, was getting on Hinge and meeting people. But
mhm.
you pick a thing, do the thing, and then you can pick another thing. And very slowly, sometimes very quickly even, you see that things are changing and
Yeah,
you're
for
feeling
me, I
better.
lost hope. I lost
Yeah.
hope and I hadn't done that. And, I'm all right. I'm trying really hard not to bash my ex. But like there was one night we were sitting on our porch. I'm not sure if we had just like had that fight, if we had already decided that we were getting divorced. I can't remember because there was about a month there that we lived together and
Yeah.
nothing had
You're
been decided.
still
But
figuring
I
it
know
out.
we were sitting out on the porch and we were drinking a couple of beers, having some cigarettes, da 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 da. And he was like, "God, you're like blind hope that things are gonna get better with our son, like, and, like, in life in general. Like, you just have, like, hope no matter what." And he was saying it like it's such a terrible thing, and that conversation, that's what started playing on repeat and made me feel very foolish for having hope,
Right. And then you had none.
and then it was fucking gone. It took about a year, but then it was fucking gone, and it was like, looking back at it, I'm like, "Man, I
How
didn't listen
weird.
to so many other things that he said, like, why did I have to listen so hard to that one?"
I know it's weird the things that other people say that stick with us like that we really like,
Mhm.
you know, take to heart. But, like, why is it wrong to have hope? Like, why
Right.
is that a bad thing?
Because
It just
I was
doesn't
a fool
make
in
any
many
sense.
ways, I think, to that version of him,
Sure.
so it was foolish.
No, hope
Well,
is never foolish.
right, and now I tell people, like, "Look, I manifested the things that I wanted in my life." I was lonely and always felt like I hadn't consented to a lot of things in my life. Now I'm with somebody who would never take without consent for the first time, I think, ever in my life. And it didn't happen until I was 41 years old, you know? So if you stop at 26, you might
Mhm.
not be able to find out what's going on at 40 or 50 for that version of you, you know?
Exactly. Exactly.
And then, so what ended up happening for me was I got put on a lot of medication. I don't know about you, but I got put on, I think, 3 or 4 different kinds of medication at once. It was like antidepressants, mood stabilizers. They tried ADHD medications with me. There were a couple other that were like off-label things or whatever. None of them worked very well at all. I ended up doing transcranial magnetic stimulation. Yeah, so it's not quite the electroshock therapy. It's not
Mhm.
like you don't have to, like, get sedated or, like, bite a plate, blah, blah, blah. You go to an office. It is time consuming,
Sure.
and I think that might be what makes it restricted for a lot of people. You have to go every day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks
Okay.
initially, and then you
That's a
go
lot. Yeah.
yeah, and then you go 3 times a week for 2 weeks after that, and then you're done. And it taps with magnets on this part in your brain that's supposed to help with anxiety, depression, addiction, whatever it is that you're there
Hmm.
for. For me, it was for depression and anxiety, and a side effect was I quit smoking 6 weeks into it, or,
Huh.
like, 3 weeks into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if
Yeah.
it also works for addiction, that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know if they have to do them in different
Different
spots for
places.
different things, but I don't know all of the science for it, but I am hoping to talk more about that on my
Okay.
podcast too, because I think people need to know about it.
Yeah.
Because I had started smoking when I was like 15. So I had tried, and I quit for both of my kids. I quit while breastfeeding both of my kids, but I would always go back. Something would
Yeah.
happen and I would always go back. This time, easy peasy.
Amazing. What was it
Yeah.
called again?
TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. And I can
Okay.
send you some information about the place I went here. They have them all over the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. It's good to know. It's always so interesting, not just hearing people's stories and how different everybody's story is. Different but the same, you know?
Mhm.
But just, what people do to feel good again, to reclaim their lives and be happy. And, as many people as there are in the world, there are that many different journeys and um things that you can do to feel
Right.
better. You're the
Yeah.
first person I've talked to that has mentioned this particular avenue. And it's just good to know all the options that are out there
Mhm.
because no two people are the same. No two modalities are going to work the same. No two medications are going to work the same on different people.
Right.
So it's a little frustrating because there's not just oh, we're depressed, we're feeling suicidal. Here's the recipe of things you have to do to
Mhm.
to feel good again. It's
Yeah.
not that straightforward, but it's
Yeah.
good to know that there are just so many options of different things we can do and different people we can talk to and different
Mhm.
sciences that especially the more that we talk about these things, the more mental health becomes something that mainstream cares about, the more money is going into research for different ways to help people improve their mental health.
Mhm.
I feel like it's only going to get better. Sadly, mental health is getting worse, but it also means that there's more money and research going into it.
Right. And I mean, So I talk about this a lot on my podcast because what I do is kind of try to introduce people to other modalities. But yeah, I also used Reiki, different energy healing, hypnotherapy.
Yep. Awesome.
Like a clinical hypnotist worked with
Mhm.
me, and cuddling, professional cuddling is a big
Oh,
one.
okay.
Yes, that a lot of people don't know about.
They
And
don't.
if we are living in an epidemic of loneliness
Yes.
and touch deprivation to starvation is
Yes.
real.
It
And
is.
how many more people would feel okay if they could just get those 4 to 8 hugs a day that they need
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
maintenance?
That was one of the things I learned when I was in massage school
Mhm.
was that touch deprivation is a thing and it can kill you,
Yep.
you know? They did some study back before there were ethics. I wanna say it was in Russia or something, but they had orphans at an orphanage, and they were just kept in their cribs the whole time. I don't
Mm.
know if this was an on
Mhm.
purpose study or if it was just a, "Oops, let's figure out what happened" study, and all of
Mhm.
these babies were dying, and they eventually figured out on purpose, I don't really know, that it was because these babies were being kept in cribs all day and not touched
Mhm.
and they died literally from not having human physical contact
Right.
with other people.
Yeah.
And it really is, and the more we live our lives online, the less human contact we have with other people, and it's not just important even just being in the same room as somebody and having a conversation with them,
Mhm.
but that touch, those hugs, the handshakes even, things like that, where we're just not getting that.
Like the way
Massage
that
is
we've
a
kind
really
of
good
cordoned
way.
off, like,
Yeah.
yeah, that we used to have. That might be the only human interaction that somebody gets all day long is that handshake or that pat on the back, whatever, at
Mhm.
work.
Yeah.
Now work is this for a
Mhm.
lot of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, you were saying about massage. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. No, I was just saying, like, if you are one of those people and you're feeling lonely and touch deprived, like, just go get a massage because that is a perfectly acceptable way to be touched.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's not sexual, it doesn't have to mean anything,
Mhm.
but you get that human touch connection with somebody.
Yeah, or
So
find cuddle
it's
therapy.
yeah, or find
There's
cuddle therapy.
there's 3 really reputable ones I know of, Cuddlist.com, Cuddle Sanctuary, and Cuddle Party. I don't know
Okay.
about all the other ones that are out there, but I know the people who run those.
Okay.
So I'm like, that's where you should go. Like, they actually train people to help people engage and understand consent and boundaries, not
Mhm.
necessarily just, "I need to have my hair stroked by this person," but they can do that as well. But, yeah, I think that it's really important. It's important work, I think, that and, like, surrogate partner work. Like, there's just so many like you're saying, Janet, there's so many modalities out there. If you are a person who you're from a family line or a race or ethnicity or religion that you're just like, "I don't like medical stuff. Like, I don't like it. There's been
Mhm.
all this, generational harm because of it." And it freaks you out thinking about going for therapy or to a doctor for medicines or what have you. Or if you're just like a mom who's like, "I'm scared they're gonna try to take my kids away if I go inpatient." You know what I mean? Because that's
Yeah.
real. There's all these other amazing modalities that you could check out that might just really help you see that glimmer of hope that you need to just have turned on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just feel
Sorry. I
that
hope that's
little
not
bit
too
better.
woo-woo.
No, not I'm super woo, so it's all
Okay.
good for me, and I think by now my listeners are realizing that we tend to get a fair number of people who lean into the woo.
Yeah.
So
Don't poo-poo the woo-woo. Yeah.
no, it's all good, and, if you're comfortable with all of this outside of the box kind of stuff, that's great. If you're not, that's great. There's lots of things that can help on both sides of that fence.
Right. And there's so many options, and yeah, I'm really fortunate that I had the friends and family that I did that were as concerned
Yes.
as they were
Yeah.
to help me find mine. Yeah. I needed to do that. And I had lots of days when I was deep, deep, deep in the pits of depression or grief that I felt bad about how my days went
Mhm.
or about how my weeks went. And since I have been able to turn that corner, I don't have that.
Amazing.
So I want you to know that you don't have to have that all the time.
Yeah. That negative voice that's, you can do better, or,
You
whatever.
didn't
You're
do
sitting on the
enough.
couch and there's this little voice
Yeah.
in your head being like, you should be doing something else.
Mm.
It
What's
it
wrong with
eventually
you?
stops. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. That's how I feel.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for being here and sharing your story and your wisdom and your insight and your hope with me
Yay.
and your listeners.
Thank you for having me, Janet. And thank you for creating this space. Like, I feel so wholeheartedly. This is really, really important shit you're doing. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you for listening. Remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are meant for more, and that it really does get better. If you are in crisis, there are numbers that you can call or text to get the help that you need. That information for Canada and the US is in the description below each episode. If you are in immediate crisis, please call 911. We love you, and I hope you'll listen again.